In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a more detailed, high-level detailing of your engine. It'll cover all the steps you need, the items you need, and what to look for. And that's all right now on Nexus Auto. Alright, so first up I should tell you this is my third video that I'm doing of an engine cleaning. First time I did it was in my early days of YouTube. I more talked about it than really did anything. So, while the video did help some people, did get some hate and stuff too, and I understand that. But, I was still early on YouTube, didn't fully get the ins and outs, and whatever. That's cool. Second thing, I filmed it the second time. Now, I showed it really from more of a mechanical or utilitarian point of view. Like, I only showed it really from cleaning your engine. But I didn't show you from a detailer's point of view. I wasn't really focused on that. I was just like, hey, how you're going to clean your engine. But what about all the ins and outs? So I figured, hey, maybe I should make a third version of the video that covers everything, doing everything on the car, stuff I didn't even cover before. So that's what this is for. Before that, though, I want to cover some misconceptions that happen with engine cleaning. This is stuff I've heard from the years. I've been doing it now for a long time. 20 years, pretty much since I got my first car, and that's like 20 years ago. So from then on, I've been doing it. Back then, it was far, far more taboo than it is now. And I've done well over 100 cars. Not just 100 times on, say, my car. No, I do it only twice a year, right? But I've done hundreds of cars because I do my own detailing and whatever. And I've done all these different cars, everything from base models like, base model Corolla up to high-end cars like Audis and Mercedes-Benz. And never an issue, never once. If you take the precautions, do it the right way, you will never have a problem with it. Also, a lot of people seem to think that it'll do some harm to the engine, things like that, just doing it. Again, taking the proper precautions, covering things up that need to be covered up, knowing what needs to be covered up, and being confident in that is going to take you a long way in getting this job done. Okay, another big question I've been asked is, what's the point of actually cleaning your engine? Does it really even matter? I mean, it's your engine. Who cares? Well, every component in your car is important, so keeping an engine clean is also important to your car. Aside from the aesthetics, so obviously just having it clean when opening the hood if you got to do any work or just checking it out, just having a nice clean engine, knowing the rest of your car is clean and that's clean on top, is a nice bonus. But it also has some mechanical benefits too. First thing is that depending how dirty it is, I mean, if you've gone off-roading or something like that and you get a lot of dirt on there, having dirt on the engine actually does make it run a little hotter. Not much, a couple degrees, but it does. So cleaning all that stuff off helps it run a little bit cooler, a little bit smoother. And it does. I've tested this out. You may not believe me. That's okay, but it does. The second thing to mention is that actually, and more importantly than all that, is especially if you live in places, again, if you go off-roading or you live in places where there's a lot of road salt through the winter and things like that, that road salt gets on components and starts breaking it down. And you may wonder how road salt gets on there. Some of you may not even understand that. I'll get to that next point. But point is, it does get on there. So washing all that off helps with longevity in your car parts. Now, the flip side to that is if you wash off your engine and don't let it dry properly, don't clean it out properly, everything like that, well, having water on certain components can cause it to maybe rust prematurely or anything like that. But that's rare. I mean, most of the car is made to get exposed to water. We'll get to that in a sec. But, you want to make sure you're cleaning everything off. So you're getting that off of things like the pulleys, off where the belt is, off of any mechanical moving parts, even off the exhaust. Getting salt off of there helps the longevity of the car. Now, the third point. A lot of people don't realize your car gets hit with water all the time. Okay, more specifically, your engine gets hit with water all the time. Do you think when driving it doesn't? Well, here's a perfect example. Go for a drive on a rainy day. Don't go for too much. Don't let the engine warm up too much. Open your hood. It's going to be covered in water. Why? Well, a few things. Number one, from underneath, water, if you go over puddles or anything, water splashes up. And I have actually seen from driving over a puddle and then opening the hood where water had splashed up and got all the way up near to the top of the car. It's got onto the cover and everything like that. Yes, that has happened. Like, you drive in a big puddle going at decent speed, it's going to happen. Second thing is when you're driving on a highway or anything like that and it's raining, all that's going through all the little crevices in the hood. If you have your grill in the front where it gets from the radiator, air gets to the radiator and all the water is getting through there and everything. It's completely hitting your engine. Absolutely does. Your engine gets covered in it. If you drive and your engine is particularly dirty, you'll actually see the water streaks on it. It happens. So your engine does get hit with water a lot more than you may believe. So having an engine cleaned and getting water to it does nothing if done the right way. Last thing to mention just because I got to throw it out there. This video is going to be longer than it actually takes to clean your engine, because I'm going through all this stuff and everything like that. It's actually pretty quick. This video covers a very quick way to do it, but you'll get awesome results from it. However, there is videos out there that cover a far, far, far more in-depth way to do it. Things like taking out your air filter hose and all that stuff. I'll actually recommend Chris Fix video. Chris Fix, in case you've never seen or heard of him before. That's a good video. He has a video on how to do an in-depth on the engine. That's a good one. But that is a time-consuming process. This process will get you really, really good results. Cover a lot of the engine. May not cover every single component, but it'll cover most of it and get you something you'll be proud of and be happy about too. So keep that in mind. If you do want to see something far more in depth, check that video out too. A little more talking just before we get started. Just again, I want to make sure I'm covering everything in this video. I don't want to. This video is going to be my definitive engine cleaning video, right? So I want to make sure I'm covering everything. Before I get started, though, I do want to talk a few things before we get into the prep and all that sort of stuff. First thing, make sure you're doing this with the engine cool. Not it could be even a little warm, not hot at all. Don't do it just after you've driven and parked the car or anything like that. Let it cool off first. This is very, very important. Having a hot engine, hot metal parts, and exposure to a cold water, even warm water right away, can put stress on those parts. And that's one of the things that happens where you see someone who has done an engine cleaning, their engine gets damaged. Guaranteed one of the number one causes for it is doing it without the engine being too cool. If you need to, open the hood, let the car cool off, give it a half hour. It should be cool to the touch. You should be able to put your hand on any of the components aside from the exhaust. And again, be cautious if you're going to do that. Don't burn yourself. But you should be able to touch anything on there, and it should be cool to touch. Even the exhaust should be cool to the touch. I just don't want to encourage you to do it and start touching it and then you burn yourself. That takes one of the longest times to cool. So, but everything should be cool. You should be able to touch it, no problem. Next up, make sure you use the right products for your car. This is incredibly important. Don't just use any, household dishwashing soap or anything on your engine. Hell no. Make sure you get proper engine degreasers. Make sure you got proper cleaners. Use the proper brushes. Do the job the right way for sure. Don't skimp out on it. It's worth mentioning too, you want to make sure you are watching out for the environment. I mean, you are washing this off. I'll be honest with you, whatever is on the engine, most of the dirt and dust and everything like that, most of all that is stuff that's in the environment anyways. Let's be real. However, if you have any engine leaks, coolant leaks, anything like that, that stuff is going to leak out. It's going to run off into the environment, into the drainage and things like that. So you want to make sure you're being cautious of that sort of thing. Watch the environment. Check your bylaws if you need to. I've also been asked, how often should you do an engine cleaning? Once a year. That's all you need. I do twice a year. Twice a year is, I think, ideal. Once in the spring, once in the fall. However, I mean, if you really don't want to do that much, once a year is really all you need. And again, it varies by various factors. Where you're driving, if you're out in the desert in Nevada or something like that, you may want to do it more than, living out in Canada. So, know your environment, know whatever. Once a year should be good. Twice a year is what I do. Now, also, I recommend that if you're going to do this, it's a good idea to make sure to wash your car as well. When you do especially if you're doing a big clean out on it, you're spraying water everywhere, dust and everything's kind of splashing out a bit. And then if you just close that off, all that stuff is run off onto your fenders, may have gone onto your windshield, down your front grille and your bumper. And if you leave that on there, especially with some of the solutions and stuff, and the dirt and everything, that can then sit on your paint and stain it, and it'll look ugly and everything like that. So if you're doing this, I always recommend to make sure you've set enough time aside to get the engine done and at least give your car a good wash. You don't have to do fancy wash and wax or anything, but at least make sure you have enough time to give it a wash too. Again, know what you're cleaning up as well. For example, you may see your car, if you bought a used car or anything like that or anything, you may see some buildup like that on there. Depending on where your fenders are, or not when your strut towers are, you may see it on there too. Be aware that may be rust proofing from when the car's been rust proofed. Either you've done it yourself or you've had somewhere else do it. Unless your intention is to remove that off, be very cautious of it and don't do it. You want to make sure that that you're keeping that stuff on there. That's there for a reason. If you've paid for it, washing that off is just wasting your money then. So if you've paid for it or anything like that, or it's been there by the dealer or anything, that's there to help protect your car. So you want to make sure to keep that on. You can wash it off, rinse it, but don't try and go nuts scrubbing it, be wary of those things. Now, if it's possible, you want to remove the engine cover or any other covers that may be there. Some cars are easy, like this Grand Prix. It's just a matter of opening this up, taking this off and putting this back on. comes off really easy. It takes like 3 seconds. Some cars are much harder, like the Infiniti here. We're taking off this box, there's a few screws. Taking this off is 2 screws in here, and then 2 back there. So, you know, something you don't have to take it off, is not completely necessary. It does help though, especially to get this stuff underneath. Next up, inspect your engine for anything that you think may need to be covered. So that includes covering your battery, alternator, any electrical components like here, fuse box, anything that's a major electrical exposed. Now something like this, for example, you don't have to, right? But you don't want to also spray water directly on here either. So, but just covering any major components, making sure all lids for fluids or anything like that are closed and covered. Water can't get into the engine or into anything like brake fluid, power steering fluid, coolant, anything like that. You don't want water getting in there. Well, I guess coolant's not so bad, but still, you don't want water getting in. Make sure everything's closed. Next, you also want to check and make sure that there's no leaks or anything like that. If you have a leak, something where oil or coolant or something's getting out, it's also possible for water or something to get in. Make sure you've done any repairs, there's no leaks or anything like that before proceeding. Alright, so this is everything you need to properly get your engine cleaned. And at first it may seem like, holy cow, that's a lot. Well, it is a lot, but that's the difference between cleaning your engine and detailing your engine. This is the difference here. So, but I'll explain everything here. So first you have some interior cleaner. This is great for just cleaning the fabric, if you do have fabric on the top of the hood. And then something to protect it after you're done. Some microfiber cloths, 3 or 4 should be alright. Some scrub brushes, a bigger kind of softer one for getting most stuff, a smaller one for getting into tighter areas, and then something like this for getting into any metalworking if you want to do it. Some wax. This is to do around the hood. We'll go through that after, but around the edges of the hood or any metal components that may be exposed. Some detailer, trim restore, anything like that. That's good for all the plastic components that are around the engine. Engine degreaser, engine protectant. This is to clean the engine. This is the spray on to make it look nice and shiny and fancy if you want to do that after. And this is what I use when I spray on the fabric spray and everything. I use something like this. You want something soft because those fabric liners at the top can tear very easily. So you don't want something that's going to do any damage or anything. So something like this where you get good motion on it, but you don't have tough bristles. Like even something like this can actually do a little bit of damage to it. So you want to be careful with stuff like that. And also a vacuum that's right there. Okay, so next up we're going to start off with vacuuming the engine. This is to get any major dust that could be on there, get any major build up, anything like that. Get that off so you're not washing that down onto the driveway or anything like that. You could also do your top liner as well if it needs a vacuuming. Doesn't hurt. In this case, we're just going to focus on the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, right now. So right off the bat, you see that makes a big difference. Not a huge one, but it does make a big difference in itself in that it gets a lot of that dust off. And when you're washing it down, you're not letting that run down onto the engine further. It's not making any mess anywhere, not getting on the driveway or wherever you're washing, nothing like that. So, you know, it certainly makes a big difference. I also keep a separate head. So one, you want one with bristles to be able to go on that. Like using a hard head like something like this, it's not going to do the job, right? Need something like this. I have a few of these. I keep one specifically just for engines. So this one here, it never touches the interior of the car or anything like that. Definitely want to have that. Alright, so now we're going to actually the fun stuff, spraying down the engine. So we start from the top and work our way down. So that way, anything from here falls down. You're not going to spray here first and then get the stuff from the top to fall on it. Makes no sense. Then also to point out, I will be using just a regular garden hose. You don't want to be using any pressure washers on here at any capacity. I will be using the jet setting. You don't have to. You can use a shower or just a regular hose or anything is fine. The jet setting though, you'll notice that I am not going to be spraying directly on the components. I'm doing it all from about this distance away from the engine. It's about 2 feet or so. So this is important as well, as I'm not getting directly into the components. If for those with a keen eye may also notice that I have not covered anything. And before you bring it up, that's just the way I work. I've been doing it a long time and I'm confident in it, and I've never had a problem with it. But do exercise the cautions I did say at the beginning of the video, at least until you get comfortable with it. So we're going to go ahead now and begin spraying. Start from the top and work our way. You see here, we're spraying down the headliner now. Or I should say hood liner. Getting very good coverage on it. Now work into the engine area. Down. There we go. Now from here you'll see I'm going to move closer in. But as I'm closer, you'll also notice that I'm going to be spraying from higher up, but spraying down and in to wash into those components. That's all you really need to do. You're going to get a good wash off of there. It's going to rinse off everything into the engine. You already see lots of water running down there. You want to get all that grime off. Alright, so we're going to first focus on cleaning the liner up here. So, we're going to go and get our interior spray. So we divide it into two. So I'll spraying one half and move over to the other half. So just go here and just spray our cleaner right in. You'll note, if you did look and see, I'm not sure if you're seeing it in the angle, but there's already some tears and everything like that. That's just perfect normal. That happens on liners. So then I'm just going to take my microfiber brush. I did forget to wet it. You want to wet it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just scrub it through. Find what works best for you. And be careful with these tears that are over here. Find what works best for you though, right? I mean, you may find a very soft bristle brush that will work. You may find, just using a microfiber cloth by hand may work for you, right? Find whatever works best. And you can just see this was a perfect clean brush. You can see some of the stuff that's come off there. Not too bad, but still. And then we're going to go ahead and rinse that right out before moving to the next side. Now, when I do any of my rinsing, it's on the shower setting, not the jet setting. All right. Then we move on to the other half. I want to show you that. Pretty much the same, just, do the other side of it. When I almost forgot, you need some car wash, a little bucket, and a sponge. Okay, so next up, we're going to use some of the car wash and the sponge and the car soap and everything, obviously, and we're going to clean any metal work on the car. So now it varies. Now, an SUV like this, it's hard to do things like, for example, the strut towers or anything like that you may see around, but some cars it's actually easy to get to. So look at your car. Anything you see any metal working, you want to use car wash for. So we're just going to take the sponge here and work it just like you would if you're washing your car. Now, just like with what I mentioned with the vacuum, you want to make sure that this sponge that you use is dedicated only for cleaning engines, nothing else. And if you're going to wash your car like I recommended, you want to make sure you change the water and clean your bucket before moving on to washing your car afterwards. Now for this car, all that you really see is these components here. And I know you didn't get to see everything, and I apologize for that. Just realizing the angle was off, but I've already done it. So I've cleaned all around here, all here, and up here. Nothing to clean down here. It's too compact to really get anything of any true usefulness. So now we're just gonna take our water, make sure it's again on a low power shower setting. And just wash that down. Alright, so now we're going to move into cleaning the actual engine itself. So we just take that engine degreaser, and it's just a matter of spraying everything down, giving it just a couple minutes to really soak in, not too long. Especially if the weather's a warmer day, you don't want it to bake in there or anything like that. Now, I'm doing everything in one shot very quickly. A good idea also is to divide the engine as well. You could divide it into half, or if you have like a car, you can do one side of the side of the car where you have the strut tower, maybe the battery, the other side, and then do half the engine and then half the engine, so you can divide it into like 4. So do what works best for you. It's all about finding the balance and knowing your car, because every car is different. So what works for one car will not work for another. So now we're just going to take our scrub brush and begin scrubbing. I'll start up here. All right. Again, making sure, normally again, some things like, for example, this here would be covered up, your washer fluid lids, things like that would be covered up as well. So again, using best judgment. Really get into the engine components as well, down into the engine bay. And of course, if something you can't reach in, like this it's not going to get all the way down there, especially on these newer cars. So get a smaller brush. You saw the smaller brush, which I'll use afterwards. Every once in a while, give the brush a rinse out. Move on to the other side over here. If it's a particularly hot day, you may notice that as you scrub this, like today's not too bad, it's pretty mild. If you scrub this and as you're scrubbing, the stuff starts drying on, then you may want to do, for example, how I just did over there, then rinse that out. Then do over here, rinse that out. Then do over here, rinse that out. And move bit by bit, side by side. That way you don't get the stuff drying on. You don't have to worry about damaging any components or staining it or actually making it look worse than it did before. I mean, the purpose of this is to make the car look good and function better.
We have to pay the person first. No. How much?
Now that we've done the main top components, we're going to move in with the smaller brush. Now, I'm not going to show you everything. This could be a little bit time consuming. This alone could take you anywhere 15-20 minutes depending on how diligent you are. You get the idea. I'm going in here. Getting all major components as best as possible. Right, and you get everywhere. You're getting in everywhere, covering as much as you can. Now, once that's done, you just take your water on the shower setting. You don't need a high pressure setting. Just start rinsing. And then you're done. Engine has been all cleaned up. Okay, so at this point now you would do some inspection, make sure you covered area, make sure everything is all nice and clean, you know. And then once that's done, you move into a metal brush. You can start getting out to some metal components if you want to. This is completely optional. I normally use a metal brush like this, a wire brush, small, fine, easy handle to kind of work around. To be honest, I saw on that Chris Fix video I mentioned before, he used a rotary, and I never thought about it. That's pretty clever. So you can look at stuff like that. I like this though, so just gonna use this. And if you see any metal areas, work it around. Now, I'm not gonna spend too long on showing you this because just like the engine cleaning, I missed a lot. Like when I did that engine cleaning just now, I didn't even clean, for example, the brake fluid cover. I didn't really get far into the engine because that's gonna be far too long. You guys get the idea. What you do at the top, you do at the bottom. Same with this here with the metal. You know, you get in there and scrub what you want to scrub, and then once done, spray down and clean it. If you need to use any cleaner, just to get any extra little grime off, feel free to do so as well. So for example, we're just going to get around here. Oops. And spray down right there. And you'll notice two things. One, I made a big difference. Let me go in closer. But two, you'll notice that there's a little bit of grime on there. So for example, I would get out some engine cleaner, spray it down, clean it up, use a soft brush in conjunction with the metal brush, and clean it up a little more if I wanted to do that. Again, these are completely optional for you, but it certainly will make a difference in the engine and make it look that much better. Alright, so now we're going to move into drying the engine. You need to have two cloths, lint-free, preferably microfiber, and you're going to be using at least the two for two things. So one, I use one cloth to do the fabric, to do around the hood or any other metal components that may be around in the engine bay, and the plastics that are around the engine. I then use a completely different rag, and I use that to do the engine itself. You don't want any of the greases and everything transferring over. So first we're just going to start off here. Move to the bottom. Move to the other side. I'll do this cover here. That's okay. I don't see any major buildup of oil, but I wouldn't do anything inside there. Okay, and I'm moving on to a secondary caulk that I'll use for the actual engine bay itself. I'm going to show you the top, doing the top of the bay. But you also want to wipe inside as well. And even after all this wiping, you still want to make sure you're letting it air dry. Right? This is just to get a good portion of the water off the engine. It'll speed up the drying process and also let it be a little more uniform. Redo that. Just saw the battery cover was off there for some reason, so clean that up. Go as far into the engine as you want, the further the better, and cut it as clean as possible. Alright, so at this point here, you want to do any final spot checks on the engine, make sure it looks good, things like that. Make sure you've covered everywhere because you've dried the engine. You want to now move into the detailing process. So first we're going to work on the liner, and all that really is getting a good quality protector, anything like that, Scotch Guard, and just spraying nice uniform even motions. This will help prevent dirt, dust, road salt, anything from getting on it. Now, I do this first for a few reasons, primarily which, as you saw when you're spraying, it does tend to overspray, kind of go out over the place. So, you know, go under the hood and it gets everywhere, right? So you want to make sure that you are getting the best coverage possible, but you don't want to do, let's say, for example, the waxing and everything, and then you spray afterwards, and then it kind of ruins the wax. So that's why I do this part first. Okay, so next up I'm going to put on the engine shine. Now this is completely optional. A couple things to note with when you're doing engine shine on there. Number one, because it is a glossy residue, it does tend to become sticky over time. So you spray it, it looks nice right away, it looks amazing, looks shiny, looks new, looks better than the dealer. But you may get a little bit of dirt and stuff over time as you dry, that'll stick to it, and it could make the next cleaning job a little more difficult. So know what you're doing and know if that's something you want to approach. I like using detailer, so I will. Now they have different types on there. I do use one from Gunk that allows to just kind of spray on and leave it. Again, you want to avoid things like the belts, electronic components, any type of openings like for fluids, electronics, anything like that you want to avoid. And you want to avoid getting this onto the body of the car as well. So it's just about uniform spray. Now, because You're going to be using a trim cleaner like around over here. You don't want to spray this part of it, anything like that, right? We're just focusing on the engine components. Just give it a minute or two to kind of set in. And you have a couple options from here. The first thing you look at doing is just leaving it, let it set. It'll settle in and give you a nice kind of shine. Also, though, it may collect and pool a little bit or anything like that. So normally I like to take a nice clean microfiber, just kind of massage it in, pat it in. Not really wiping it off. You don't want to do that, it's not the goal. But just kind of covering my work. This one step here makes a big difference in how it dries. But again, you don't have to do it. Getting as much as I can, as much components as I can. Now you may wonder why I did this and not went right into doing the waxing of the hood. Well, a couple of reasons. Number one is if you are spraying this on, you may get some slight overspray that could go up onto the hood. So again, you want to, just trying to mitigate that. Second thing is, for some cars, you will be able to do the strut towers or the sidewall of the car, anything like that in the engine bay. So you might as well get the spraying done first, then move on to your waxing and wax above and below, if you can do below. Next up, I'm going to use the detailer to clean up the plastic components that are around. If you got a little bit of engine spray that I've kind of moved on here, that's quite okay, not a problem. And as usual, whatever detail you're using, because this is really technically like an interior detailer, which is perfectly fine as long as you're not spraying directly onto the engine. However, it is worth noting that you want to use a separate cloth that's only going to be for this job, right? So just spray gently. Don't go nuts with it. You don't want overspray to go onto the nice clean engine you just did. Right? I should move the camera back just a tad. There. Now we just take our cloth. Work the detailer in. Cover all components. Alternatively, you could spray it directly onto the cloth if you want to as well. It's entirely up to you how you want to go about it. Flip the cloth, and then give a final kind of buff. In case you're wondering, Yes, you can actually use just the engine spray, the detailer spray right on there too. I like using a different detailer for it because there's technically different components, but and these components that are around the plastic that are here are kind of more in line to what's inside of the car and what you use on your dashboard. It's a little more in line to that versus some of the engine components. However, really doesn't. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't completely matter. You can use that and do the same process. Use a clean microfiber and just massage it in, and you'll get good results too. And last up, we're going to go ahead and take our wax and do our waxing under the hood here. Now again, if you had any, once I'll remind, I'm not doing because this car doesn't have it, but if you have like the strut towers and they're exposed metal, then you can clean that with the same process as well. So we're just going to shake up our wax. Spray wax is fine. You can use a paste wax too. Paste wax is best, but you can use a spray on too. So let me just give a few quick taps there. For the first time around, begin working it in. And then flip over to buff. And from these smaller edges here, I'll spray it directly onto the cloth. Same with the back. And we do the same for the other side as well. And then for the edges, a couple quick sprays on there, just along the edge, and around the back. Not too bad, you ask me. Now here are some pictures of some cars I've done in recent times. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope this video has helped you out here today. Now let's go through some of the YouTube stuff, shall we? Don't forget to like and subscribe if this video has helped you out. And if you want to see my future videos, I try and put out one at least once a week. Make sure to hit notifications as well, just so you can get those videos. On the flip side to that, if you didn't like the video for whatever reason and you do dislike it, not a problem. Feel free to leave it in the comments of why you disliked it, whether it be something I did wrong, whether it's something you didn't like in the video. By all means, just let me know so I can keep making the best content possible. It's kind of the whole point of it, so make sure to do that. Speaking of the comments, if you have any questions, concerns, anything you want to add on, anything you see you can do better, anything that maybe you add on and it actually is worse, whatever it is, feel free to leave it in the comments. Nothing wrong with that. I always try and answer whenever I can. May not be the same day, next day, whatever, but I try and answer all comments. So make sure to leave that as well. Once again, I want to thank you very, very much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.